Hi, my name is Dr. Nishant Yagnick. I'm a neurosurgeon, writer, and philosopher. And today I want to talk to you about the three kinds of knowledge that exist in this world. So before I start talking about this, I want to talk to you about a certain term that I used in my personal philosophy. And that word is samsara or sansar. Now, samsara is a Sanskrit word also used in Buddhism that essentially denotes the world around us. Except when I use the word samsara, I mean the subjective world, not the objective world. What this means is my world as the way I experience it. The world is so vast that none of us can actually experience the entire world or know about the entire world. So my world, or the world that I experience, is very different from someone who's living in Japan or someone who's living in Australia. My world is also very different from the person sitting right next to me. The things that I know about, the things that I have experienced, the things that I am concerned about, the things that affect my emotions are very different from any person who's sitting next to me. And the farther that person is away from me, the more different that person's world is compared to mine. And there are common threads in every person's experience of this world, but we all know that each person's world is different. And that world that each one of us experiences is what I call our personal samsara. So I use the word samsara to denote our personal world, the one that we believe exists, the one that we subjectively experience. Is there an objective world that exists? On a macro level, yes, I do believe that there is an objective world with macroscopic laws, and that is something that all of us cannot experience in its entirety because we have a limited mind and we have limited time on our hands and we have limited experiences. And we have very individual experiences. And so, your world is different from my world. So the word samsara means for you, your world, for me, my world. And in this samsara, in our own personal samsara, I have come to the conclusion that all the knowledge, everything we do, can be divided into essentially three categories. The first kind of knowledge is the knowledge of the world, and I call it the philosophy of the samsara, which means that it's the knowledge of how the world works. It's the knowledge of how, a machine works, of how to do neurosurgery, of how to do accounting, how to invest in stocks, how to make an apple pie. It's the kind of knowledge that helps us understand the world and make changes in the way the world works. That's the philosophy of the samsara. And then there's the philosophy beyond this world, the philosophy or the knowledge beyond the samsara, beyond our subjective world. And these are the questions we ask about why the world exists, about why the world works. Not how to make an apple pie, but why should I make an apple pie? And this particular type of knowledge, I've realized, is actually a byproduct of the first kind of knowledge, which is the knowledge of the samsara, or the knowledge of the world. And how and why this happens is a process something like this. Let's say you want to make coffee. So you go online, you go to a YouTube video and you want to make Dalgona coffee. And you learn how to make coffee. And then you ask, why should I use this much coffee instead of lesser coffee? And once you come to the why question, why should I do something in this recipe? You start asking yourself as a conclusion, why should you want to drink coffee at all? And once you start asking why you should have coffee, you can start asking why you should have or eat anything at all. And if you keep following the why question, your mind automatically will come to the final few questions that we all come to. Why do we exist? Why are we here on this earth? What is our mission, or what is our purpose? Questions like that have nothing to do with the way the world works. I also believe that this line of questioning beyond the samsara is unique to our species. It's difficult to say what, the smartest creature in the world, maybe chimpanzees or dolphins, are thinking, but I highly doubt they're asking why they exist in the first place. So it is a deeply human thing to do, and it comes out neuroscientifically as a conclusion from the same things that make us question why a certain thing works a certain way in the universe. Why do clouds form? Why does rain fall down? Why do things fall down and not up? And that same why, when placed on ourselves, when we lose our ego from all of this line of questioning, when we start questioning the very basis of our existence, we start going into the realm of questions beyond the samsara. Not everyone will ask these questions. That's the second part. There are people who will go through their entire lives without ever wondering about the philosophy beyond the samsara. They were completely in the samsara. 99% of the things we do, the things we question, the things we learn are the philosophy of the samsara. It's taken me years to become a neurosurgeon. It's been hard work. And it takes people years to master many other things. And so the majority of our time is spent in understanding and asking questions of how the world works and why it works a certain way. And we've done ingenious things to understand why the world works and to be successful in that world. But there will be a category of people whose brain automatically starts going through that why questioning and starts asking abstract questions that have nothing to do with their existence. If you do not ask a single question in the philosophy beyond the samsara, it is not going to affect your life at all. But whether you ask that question or whether you don't ask those questions is totally not in your control. Your brain, as an analytical instrument, is going to ask the question whether you like it or not. Even if you don't talk about it loudly, even if you don't talk about it with your family because they might start, ridiculing you for asking questions that don't need to be asked, your brain is going to ask those questions. And if you are the kind of person, maybe that, and it's not a very high percentage of people who ask these questions, and even fewer percentage of people who act on these questions. But if you are the kind of person who asks questions that are abstract about the nature and meaning of things, then you are going through the philosophy beyond the samsara, and you know that I know what that process feels like. In fact, I call it a little worm. The Hindi word for it is keeda. There's the dimag mein keeda hai, that there's a little worm in your brain that constantly itches, that constantly keeps, poking your brain. Even if you try to force it to stop, why am I thinking this? Why am I asking these questions? Why is it so, am I being stupid questioning these things that no one questions? But your mind will automatically question it. And so, if you are thinking of abstract questions beyond the samsara, you're going to do it whether you like it or not. So start enjoying the process if you do. The third philosophy is not a philosophy at all. It's the philosophy of addiction. And at any point of time, our brains can get into addiction. Our brain can start getting addicted to not just substances, not just alcohol, not just drugs, not just smoking. We can be addicted to people. We can be addicted to a lifestyle. We can be addicted to sugar. And all of us are addicted to one thing or the other, but most of us keep it in a certain balance. Once the addiction goes beyond a certain point, you stop thinking about anything from the philosophy of the samsara or the philosophy beyond the samsara. All you're thinking is about how to fulfill your addiction. And even physically and psychologically, your brain has gotten into a space where the other philosophies are no longer important, that they're not part of your realm at all. So the philosophy, the third one, is the philosophy of addiction, and it's not a philosophy at all. So there are essentially three types of knowledge in your world, in your samsara: the philosophy of the samsara, the philosophy beyond the samsara, and the philosophy of addiction. The philosophy of the samsara is about how things work. The philosophy beyond the samsara is about why things work. And the philosophy of addiction is no philosophy at all. Now, I want you to do a certain personal exercise. Just analyze yourself and analyze the people around you, people in your office, people you work with, people in your family. You can actually classify people on how much they think about either philosophy. There are people who in your life, I'm sure, including yourself maybe, who don't think about the philosophy beyond the samsara at all. And there are people who think about the philosophy beyond the samsara so much that they are nearly ascetics. And they might be completely useless at the philosophy of the samsara. Everyone has to do, some amount of philosophy of the samsara. We need to know how the fridge works, that stuff is kept cold in there, and we need to know how to pick up a cup of tea and have it. But essentially, they can be totally useless and ineffective in their regular lives of the philosophy of the samsara, not succeeding at any endeavor in that regard, but yet be deeply philosophical and constantly question the nature of their own existence and the existence of others and the existence of things. And then there are people with a significant balance of both. And then there are people who I'm sure you know, who are so deeply into the philosophy of addiction that they couldn't care less about how the world works or why the world works. Everything that I'm going to tell you from this podcast or anything I mention is going to be part of one of these three philosophies. And everyone in their minds has a percentage of these three philosophies, and you can actually both classify people through it, and you can even connect with people through it. When two people who deeply think about the philosophy beyond the samsara meet, you know that they're going to get along. Well, even if they don't agree with each other, they can strongly disagree. But as personalities, they might be exactly the same. Remember, the emotional fight is the greatest fight of our lives. And in this fight, perspective is power.